With a few well-done updates and upgrades, any Builder Basic ranch could become the home of your mid-century dreams. Hey there! Welcome to Mid Mod Remodel, the podcast that helps you update a mid-century home to match your modern life. I'm your host, Della Hansman, residential architect, mid-century enthusiast, and first-time homeowner updating a 1952 ranch in Madison, Wisconsin. You are listening to the first ever episode of Mid Mod Remodel. This week we're focusing on why remodeling a ranch or other mid-century home can be so rewarding and also a bit of a challenge. Let's get right into what brings you to this podcast. If you're listening to a podcast called Mid Mod Remodel, you may be considering, or in the middle of, remodeling a mid-century home. Note, a lot of what I'll talk about on this podcast will be useful for anyone planning a home remodel of any style or era. I focus on MCM homes specifically because 1, I like them, and 2, I think they're actually pretty underappreciated by the home remodeling industry and need an extra boost of advice. You might also be here because you're just a fan of the mid-century period. Stick around, you'll find lots to interest you in the weeks to come. But, back to my MCM homeowner. Planning a mid-century remodel is so much fun. I'm delighted for you. It's also sometimes extremely overwhelming. I imagine you've experienced some of the following. You've talked to a contractor and then felt mystified by their language and frustrated by how they convey information about planning, timing, and costs. It's hard to get a sense of whether you and they are on the same page. Or you've tried to do some online research. You've been completely overwhelmed by the quantity of information that's out there. There are so many options. Should you focus on Pinterest, Instagram, HGTV, any of the countless remodeling blogs that are out there? So many media sources are shouting about what's on trend this week and what's not, and a lot of it seems to be keyed towards houses that are not like yours. Or maybe you've gone to Home Depot to source some quick materials for a home improvement project or repair and been confronted with an entire aisle of light fixtures, faucets, or tile that seems substantially similar, and yet none are quite right for an MCM home. I get it. I'm remodeling my own home as a first-time homeowner, and I know the quicksand feeling of too many options and not enough input to help me choose. I know the frustration of not being able to find the MCM option and certainly not find it inexpensively. I've also spent over a decade as a residential architect helping other homeowners navigate this very complicated problem, just like you. I want you to know that there is a way to cut through the noise and figure out the best plan for your remodel. You must have a strong plan, and it comes down to 3 steps. First, really think about what you want your home to be and to do for you. Imagine it in detail. Then design it. Think about fun inspirations, hit up Pinterest, Instagram. Take in as much information as you want while you construct a roadmap for your remodel that will keep you on track from start to finish. And only then go out into the world and start interfacing with contractors, product suppliers, and get more advice from the whole internet. Once you have your vision in place, you'll be able to stay on course and end up with a remodel that you love. This is something that any interested homeowner can do, and if it sounds daunting, don't worry. I'm here to hold your hand. Getting ready to make that plan is literally what I want you to get out of this first season of Mid Mod Remodel. Now the stakes here are actually pretty high. What could go wrong if you don't think it through in advance is that you could spend all the time, money, and energy that a remodel requires and still end up with a home you don't love. That's true of any remodel. But for you, a mid-mod remodeler, there's an added risk. A few hasty choices you make now at the start of a project, or that are made by a contractor who isn't as invested in MCM design as you are, could end up stripping out the mid-century character from your home in ways you can never put back. Don't worry though. Just by being here, you're already showing that you care enough to make the right choices for you and your home. So let's dig a little deeper. Remodeling is hard. There are a lot of moving parts. It's expensive, it's personal and public. There's so much emotional baggage. You need to take on big negotiations between yourself and your life partner. It can be a lot. And then, remodeling an MCM home comes with this extra level of difficulty because despite the popularity of West Elm furniture and other mid-mod examples across the internet, there's not actually a lot of support out there for taking on a house-scale remodel that's true to the mid-century period. The $99 billion a year home building and remodeling industry is kind of working against you here. Even though ranch-style houses are the most popular home type in 35 out of 50 states, including Wisconsin, and new home buyers are most often searching for houses with 3 bedrooms or fewer, manageable small starter homes, that's not what the $99 billion a year home remodeling industry is creating. They keep building these giant new houses that are crazily outside the price range and needs of young first-time homebuyers. So why this giant disconnect? Well, it's not that the builders of the world are out to get you. The remodeling industry is made up of people just like you and me who want to work hard, make nice things, and go home at the end of the day happy and satisfied. But their industry is driven by bigger market forces. To put a metaphorical face on the problem, let's take a minute and pick on the villain of our story. Let me introduce to you the National Association of Home Builders New American Home 2019. Every year since the 80s, the NAHB has put together a home show that is intended to feature the best elements of contemporary house design. Now, in the 80s, those homes were reasonably well aligned with what was being built across America. But the show house rapidly grew beyond what regular homeowners were building or requesting. Let's talk about the American Home 2019. First, it's located in the desert outside Las Vegas, which is where the NAHB conference was held this year. At a glance, it looks less like a home and more like a corporate retreat center. Here are a few features. It has a tricked-out kitchen that runs up against a sliding glass wall and then transitions to an outdoor grilling kitchen. Plus, there's a third kitchen in the show garage. That's the show garage, not the other garage where you store your multiple cars. The house has 5 bedrooms and 5.5 baths, and that is down from last year's 8 bedrooms and bathrooms. In their advertising literature, they actually make a point to talk about how sustainability was important to them in their design, and they highlight a bunch of sustainable-focused products that they use in the house. But I hope I'm not the first person to point out to you that you can't actually build a 10,000 square foot home in the middle of the desert and call it sustainable, no matter what technology you employ. This kind of extravagant idea is what's driving the home industry on every level. The home building industry is driven not by home buyers, but by manufacturers and product suppliers. So for you, as the owner of a mid-century ranch, this can mean that the advice you find on the internet, and even from well-meaning local professionals, is skewed towards results that aren't what you're looking for. And if you're not careful, you can end up getting steered away from your own vision and end up with a home that wasn't what you planned for and isn't what you need. If all of this starts to make you feel like maybe you're not cut out to plan a remodel, stop right there. You're fine. It's not you, it's them. So let's reframe. First, thank you for your service. I and all other lovers of MCM homes appreciate that you are planning to preserve and protect your home's mid-century character. Your neighbors will thank you. Second, let's get you some help. Team Mid Mod Remodel, we are going to chart a path through the wilderness and set you up for success. To that end, I have a cohesive introductory season of this podcast all scoped out for you. It's like a little mini course you can listen to at your own pace. Between now and the end of 2019, we'll be covering why mid-century houses are so great and a bit challenging to remodel, a brief history of MCM housing to set you up for mid-century remodeling success, an overview of what's changed since these houses were originally built, and how those changes in our lifestyles drive the things that we generally need to address in a remodel. Some common features of MCM houses, from overall layout down to details like cabinets and flooring materials. Then we'll take a step back and look at the big picture elements of any successful remodeling plan, MCM or otherwise. We'll talk about scope. I've got you covered, whether you're an aspiring DIYer looking to lay out a list of step-by-step weekend projects for the next 5 years, or are planning to get it all taken care of in one swell swoop. Finally, we'll wrap the season and the year with a simple how-to episode laying out how to craft a kick-ass roadmap for your remodel. My goal is to help you take the guesswork out of your mid-century remodel, and I'll bring you a non-threatening design discussion along the way. And at the end of every episode, you'll have clear ideas that you can practically apply to your remodel and a new point of view to help you keep going through the inevitable slog of taking a renovation from start to finish. If you hear something on the show you would like to follow up on, by the way, there will always be additional resources in the show notes. Just scroll up if you're listening in iTunes, or pop over to midmod-midwest.com/001 to get more information and images. All right, so let's conclude with a little pep talk. Why mid-century homes are so great and why I love them so very much. First of all, they're the right size. Modern families aren't really looking for giant McMansion show homes anymore, and so mid-century ranches offer a wonderful alternative to that kind of too-big housing. They have just enough of the regular house features that most people want, a little bit of yard, enough bedrooms that you can put a home office in if you need, a nice living space, probably a den, and at the same time, they're just not going to be too much for a regular homeowner to take on. Sidebar, single level living is great if you like to do DIY home maintenance. If you've ever balanced on a ladder trying to paint the top of your gable roof, you're very grateful that your house is only one floor. Next, they are in a great location. Mid-century ranch houses are found in mid-century neighborhoods, walkable, close to schools, libraries, parks, and local businesses. In my own 1952 neighborhood, each long block is cut across the middle by a short secret sidewalk that leads directly to a school or to the library so that school kids can get across as quickly as possible on cold mornings. I love it. Then, ranches are very well built. They were built to a standard of construction that's hard to match today, and they use materials we can really no longer get at any price. The kind of dimensional lumber that was used in the 50s and 60s is denser and more old growth than what you can find at Home Depot or what you could get from a specialty shop. We just don't build like this anymore. So they're very sturdy and well made, even though they have some natural maintenance issues. And the same qualities make them easy to add on to. If you do need to adjust your floor plan, you can. Their basic rectangular and L-shaped forms, simple gable roof, and other basic sort of simple qualities make them easy to add on to. So you can put an addition off the front, or you can add a den into the back. You can usually go down and find extra space to remodel in your basement. There's a lot of easy, low-hanging fruit in the mid-century home to remodel or add on to. Then they're pretty livable just as they are. They are very well suited to a casual modern lifestyle. Unlike an older home that has more of a separation between formal, public spaces and family or service spaces, mid-century homes are meant to be lived in all parts of every day. So you don't have an extra formal living room that you never go into except for on holidays and have to keep clean and heat. They generally aren't the open plan, modernist loft idea that you can encounter and sometimes take some heat for being too hard to live in and have any privacy. Mid-century ranch is generally going to have a separate kitchen space, although it might be open plan in the sense that there is not a door and never has been a door in the open doorway between the kitchen and living areas. But they strike a nice balance, and they're very well suited to the way people live today. Finally, no matter how basic your ranch is, it's guaranteed to have some elements of mid-century charm. There are probably some original brass light fixtures, beautiful honey blonde wood trim, hopefully still unpainted, a fieldstone fireplace, an old-fashioned telephone nook between the kitchen and dining room. You'll find something. Every time I peek into an open house or visit a new client for the first time, I find some incredibly charming feature of their home that I can't even stop myself from photographing for Instagram. You'll find these in your home too. Thanks for listening. I feel like we're friends now. I hope you've enjoyed Mid Mod Remodel and have learned a little bit more about what makes MCM homes so lovable, livable, and generally above average. In next week's episode, we'll dig into the history of the Middle American ranch house. We'll be talking about Frank Lloyd Wright, Cliff May, and even touching on the Levitt brothers as we explore what came together to create this thing we call the mid-century ranch. Stick with me, Team Mid Mod Remodel, and before 2020, we will have taken a top-level look at everything you need to know in order to plan a really great remodel for your home. If you have ideas, comments, or questions about your mid-century home, drop me a message in the show notes or hit me up via direct message on Instagram at MidModMidwest. You can find those detailed show notes with links, images, and more on my website at midmod-midwest.com/001. If you like this podcast and found it useful, help me spread the word by leaving a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next week.